Sit back and enjoy an hour of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started.
Writer and philosopher Voltaire once described how he used a trick to win the lottery in France in 1729. Together with a friend who was a mathematician, they calculated how many tickets were sold and compared it with the sum they could win since there was a calculation error in the system. Buying a certain number of tickets allowed them to win more than 7 million francs, which at that time was truly a lot of money. When Rajput warriors in India went into battle, they placed fake trunks on their horses, making them look like baby elephants to the enemy's war elephants. This caused them to instinctively avoid attacking them. Mount Augustus in Australia, despite its name, is actually considered the largest monolith or rock in the world. It measures 3,628 feet in height and is believed to have formed about 1,650,000,000 years ago. In the city of Kazan in Russia, there is a structure called the Temple of All Religions that combines religious architectural styles and serves as a cultural center for peaceful encounters. It is still not finished. In 2008, Lamborghini gave the police of Italy the fastest patrol car in the world at that time, the Gallardo model, with special equipment that included a cooler to transport organs for transplants. In 2009, it became unusable after a crash. Papua New Guinea is one of the countries with the greatest cultural diversity in the world. They currently have 836 different languages, even though they only have 11 million inhabitants, which is equivalent to one different language for every 14,000 people. Batman's voice in the movie The Dark Knight is much raspier and more exaggerated than in the previous film, Batman Begins. This was not the idea of actor Christian Bale. It was director Christopher Nolan who decided to alter it in the film's post-production so that it would sound more intense. In 2002, a publishing house in China released a fake sequel to the Harry Potter books called Harry Potter and Bao Shuolong, which was actually the text of the book The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, but modified. They changed the names of the characters to names from the Harry Potter universe. The first proposal to build the Channel Tunnel, or Eurotunnel, to connect Great Britain and France was presented in 1802. According to this plan, it would have oil lamps, horse-drawn carriages, and an artificial island in the middle where horses could be changed. But this proposal was rejected. It was not until 1994 that the Eurotunnel opened. The Okavango River in southern Africa has the particular characteristic that it does not reach the ocean, but instead reaches the desert. It has a mouth, or a delta, but it does not lead anywhere. It is established as a World Heritage Site. However, in recent years, it has been drying up, which could completely change the ecosystem of the region. Two scientists carried out an experiment in 1971 to practically test the theory of relativity. They boarded airplanes with atomic clocks and traveled around the world twice. After landing, they compared the clocks with the ones that had remained on Earth and confirmed that they were no longer synchronized, with a difference of nanoseconds. The theory was confirmed. According to a study from 2006, prehistoric predators had excellent vision, surpassing modern animals such as hawks. For example, Tyrannosaurus rex had eyesight 13 times more precise than humans, which allowed them to detect prey at a distance of 3.7 miles. Somehow they had to compensate for those little arms. Unlike dogs, cats cannot follow a vegetarian diet because of their biological composition, since they would develop health problems. Chile has a north to south length of 2,653 miles. If the length of Chile were used as a unit of measurement, as shown on this map, the entire world would be less than 5 Chiles away from Chile. The farthest point would be the central region of China. The Spanish language has approximately 300,000 different words or concepts, although the Royal Spanish Academy gathers only 88,000 of them. It was recently discovered that the bowhead whale can live for more than 200 years. That means that some of these whales that exist today were already alive on the day the novel Moby Dick was published, in which the characters spend their time chasing a whale, although in the case of the novel, it is a sperm whale. Japanese card games such as Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon are inspired by a card game from the Edo period called Obake Karuta, which had creatures from Japanese mythology drawn on them. The only place where the Japanese language is the official language is on the island of Angaur in Palau, where only around 130 people live. In Japan, Japanese is not specified as an official language. This happened because when the Constitution of Palau was written, many of those who participated in the process had been educated in Japanese due to the South Pacific Mandate of 1919. However, currently no person on that island speaks Japanese. The first mention of a pen with an ink reservoir was in the year 973 in North Africa. The Caliph of the Maghreb at that time, Ma'ad al-Mu'iz Lidin Allah, requested that a pen be made for him that would not stain his hands while writing and that contained the ink inside. It was not until 1,000 years later that something similar was mentioned again in writings. When bacteriologist Alexander Fleming accidentally discovered penicillin, the first antibiotic, he called it mold juice before changing the name to penicillin. He discovered it after he left a petri dish in his laboratory and went on vacation. When he returned, he noticed how a liquid had formed around the mold that had eliminated all the bacteria. To participate in the series The Mandalorian as the main villain Moff Gideon, actor Giancarlo Esposito asked the creator of the series, Jon Favreau, to give his character a cape. It was his only request because he wanted to wear a cape. There is an area of more than 772 square miles in Africa, between Egypt and Sudan, called Bir Tawil, that does not belong to any country and has not been claimed by anyone, being considered terra nullius, or no man's land. Attempts to claim the area and turn it into an autonomous country have been ignored by the international community. The double-bladed lightsaber used by Darth Maul in the movie Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace, is actually not built as a single piece. It is two lightsabers joined and welded together, which is why half of it still works when one was destroyed by Obi-Wan. In the last 500 years, the volcanoes of Iceland have expelled 1/3 of all the lava that has come to the surface of the Earth. It is the region with the most consistently active volcanoes. During the filming of the movie Noah's Ark from 1928, so much water was used, more than 528 gallons in the flood scene, that 3 extras drowned and several others were severely injured. The director, Michael Curtiz, would later go on to make the film Casablanca. It was calculated that $21 billion in gift cards have been lost in the United States. This is because people do not redeem them and the validity period of the balance expires. A Japanese engineer named Akira Haraguchi holds the record for the largest number of digits of pi recited from memory. It took him 16 hours to say them. To memorize them, he used a method in which he assigned letters to each number and turned them into stories that were easy to remember. During peace negotiations between North Korea and South Korea, the two committees in charge tried to bring a bigger flag to each meeting, as if it were a competition. Sometime later, a special meeting had to be held where they agreed on measurements for the flags that no longer fit in the room where they were meeting. There is a megalithic monument in the middle of the Sahara Desert that was built around 6,000 years ago, 1,000 years before Stonehenge. It consists of 30 rocks arranged in the circle, and inside there are 6 more rocks that are believed to be related to constellations. There is a zone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where great white sharks gather. Even though they are a coastal species, that place is not their habitat, and there is no food there. No one really knows why this behavior occurs, but studies are being conducted about it. The first time a human set foot in Antarctica was not until the year 1820, making it the last place in the world to be discovered. However, since the 1st century, there had been hypotheses about its existence, and there are many maps drawn centuries ago that show a continental mass in the southern part of the Earth, even though at that time, no one had seen that place. When the series The Sopranos was airing, the producer once said that the FBI contacted him to tell him that the real mafia members they were investigating at that time had become paranoid, since they believed that one of them was telling stories to the creators of the series because of how similar it was to reality. To produce 2.2 pounds of honey, bees must visit approximately 1,440,000 flowers. This work is done by a group of around 200 worker bees throughout their lifetime, which is roughly between 30 and 60 days. The American Express Black Card, considered the most exclusive credit card in the world, has a minimum annual cost of $10,000, and you must earn at least $1 million a year to have it. It includes some benefits for its holders, such as exclusive airport lounges, among other things, but it is mainly used by people who simply want to show off their money. The crocodiles that live in the Sahara Desert region are actually a relic from when the area had much more water and a different climate. Over time, they became trapped and forced to adapt to the new dry climate, surviving in smaller bodies of water. Eventually, they evolved into a different species. The blackest color of all, Vantablack, which absorbs almost all the light on its surface, cannot be bought because it is not a pigment. In reality, it is made of carbon nanotubes with specialized processes. If it were sold, its price would be higher than that of gold or diamonds. The company that developed it also made a cheaper and easier to apply version. 2,500 years ago, the Persians invented a method to make and store ice in the middle of the desert. It is called a yakhchal. These are cone-shaped buildings connected by underground water channels that take advantage of evaporative cooling. To this day, many people still use a version of this method. Bolivia is the country with the most official languages of all, with 37, Spanish, and 36 other local languages. By contrast, Australia, Eritrea, Luxembourg, Sweden, and Tuvalu do not have an official language either nationally or in their subdivisions. The highest point in Denmark, which is 561 feet above sea level, is lower than the lowest point in Switzerland, which is 633 feet. Meanwhile, the highest point in the Netherlands, despite being a notably flat country, is 1,056 feet. In 1969, a $34 million SR-71 Blackbird aircraft disintegrated during a flight because of an obstruction caused by a piece of insulating tape only a few inches long. To this day, it remains the fastest manned aircraft ever in service, capable of reaching a speed of Mach 3, or 2,300 miles per hour. In 2013, before a soccer match between Liechtenstein and England, the national anthem of Great Britain, God Save the Queen, was played twice because at that time it was also the anthem of Liechtenstein. This melody was used by many countries as their national anthem before the 20th century, including Russia, Germany, Switzerland, and Iceland, which later abandoned it when creating their own anthem. The candy company Jelly Belly gathers candies that do not pass quality control because they have different shapes and sells them at a lower price. The imperfect candies also became one of their most popular products. There are only 2 permanent civilian settlements in Antarctica where people live throughout the year. They are Villa Las Estrellas of Chile and Base Esperanza of Argentina. In each of these places, around 60 people live in winter and 150 in summer. It is a requirement that all people who live there must not have an appendix as a preventive measure in case of an emergency, since health services are limited in any situation. Martin Luther King Jr., leader of the civil rights movement during the 1960s in the United States, and known for his speeches in front of thousands of people, once, years earlier, received a grade of C in the subject of oratory or public speaking. That grade is equivalent to about 6 or 7, the minimum to pass. According to a study conducted in 2007 by a university in Denmark, the real secret to happiness is having low expectations in life in order to have fewer disappointments and more surprises. Belgium spent 652 days without a government, from 2018 to 2020, which constitutes a record for a country in modern times. They achieved this because their regions are sufficiently autonomous, and during that time, they only used an interim government to mediate and handle international matters. The 3 countries that have formed most recently are South Sudan in 2011, Kosovo in 2008, and Montenegro in 2006. It is estimated that in the Padmanabhaswamy Temple in India, there are approximately $19 billion in pure gold and precious stones stored in chests and rooms. Some of these have not been opened yet, so it is not known exactly what they contain. Actor Keanu Reeves mentioned that he has performed 90% of all his action scenes in the John Wick films. He has only used stunt doubles in the most dangerous ones. This helped the director make more creative shots, since he did not need to use angles that hid the stunt double's face or arrange cuts in a specific way to switch between the stunt double and the actor. The prohibition on taking photos inside the Sistine Chapel did not exist until 1994, when a restoration funded by a Japanese television company was completed, in exchange for exclusive filming rights there. After the 3 years of exclusivity ended, the Vatican decided to continue prohibiting photos to protect the works of art. The longest distance you can travel in a boat in a straight line without touching land goes from the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia to Pakistan, a total of 19,939 miles. On a flat map, it looks like a curved line, but on a 3-dimensional map, it is a straight line. Inventor Nikola Tesla hated pearls so much that he would not even speak to women who wore them. One day, he even sent his secretary home because she was wearing a pearl necklace. It is not known exactly why he had this hatred, but it is believed that it was something derived from obsessive-compulsive disorder. Alka-Seltzer was created when the president of the company, Miles Laboratories, was reading the newspaper and came across advice from an editor, a home remedy to relieve the flu that consisted of mixing baking soda and aspirin. The popular Pez candy dispensers and compressed candies were invented in 1927 as mints intended to help people quit smoking. The first dispenser appeared in 1949. Russia borders Norway on one side, which ranks first in freedom indexes, and on the other side, it borders North Korea, which ranks last among all countries in these indexes that measure things such as freedom of the press, economic freedom, and democracy. The most expensive white painting ever sold is Bridge by Robert Ryman. It sold for $20 million in 2015. White paintings like these aim to provoke those who look at them, making them express their ideas instead of the painting itself expressing them. And I suppose the price aimed to do the same thing, provoke reactions from people. For people who have trouble sleeping, many experts recommend camping for a week without technology. This helps the circadian rhythm synchronize with sunrise and sunset, which improves sleep quality. In the 19th century, caviar was not seen as a luxury food. It was even given for free in bars like peanuts. But over time, it became one of the most expensive foods. The most remote inhabited place in the world is a settlement called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, located on one of the islands of Tristan da Cunha in the Atlantic Ocean. To get there, you have to take a ship from Cape Town, South Africa, which takes 6 days to arrive, since the island does not have an airport. The nearest settlement is 1,350 miles away on the island of St. Helena. In the Olympic Games, the pistol that was used to signal the start of the races gave an unfair advantage to the athlete who was in the closest lane because of the speed at which sound travels. Currently, each lane has an independent speaker. There exists a violin made entirely from diabase rock, known as black granite. It was made from drawings created by Antonio Stradivari with some modifications so it could be playable. The composition of that rock gives it a specific sound that cannot be achieved with wood. The atomic clocks in GPS satellites are programmed to compensate for the time dilation that occurs according to the theory of relativity. If this small adjustment were not made, GPS devices would make errors of up to 6.2 miles over time. Russia spans 11 time zones out of the 24 in the world. When someone at one end is waking up, someone at the other end of the country is already at dinner time. In contrast, China only uses one time zone, so that the entire country has the same time as the capital, Beijing. Titanium is the 9th most abundant element on planet Earth. However, most of it is found in the core. Extracting this metal from the Earth's crust is very expensive, and processing it generates a very large amount of waste. That is why it is one of the most expensive materials. The first hacking security incident occurred in 1903, when a magician and inventor named Neville Maskelyne demonstrated that the new wireless telegraph communications were not secure and could be intercepted easily. When they were presenting that technology, he took the opportunity to insert some insults toward the creator of that invention. Biologists discovered that birds that have adapted to urban life make different sounds, like a kind of bird rap. Unlike those that remained in rural areas, city birds make faster songs with higher notes. Canada's only land border used to be with the United States, the longest border in the world. But in 2022, Canada and Denmark signed an agreement to divide the territory of Hans Island in half, a small, uninhabited island near Greenland that belongs to Denmark. It is now one of the smallest borders in the world, measuring only 0.75 miles. The work by the Italian artist Parmigianino, Self-Portrait in a Convex Mirror from 1524, could be considered the first selfie. He painted it with oil on wood while looking at himself in a mirror. What distinguishes it from other self-portraits is the distortion caused by the shape of the mirror. Studies have found evidence that humans infected with the flu virus tend to be more social and come into contact with large groups of people, which makes transmission easier. The sports drink brand of YouTubers KSI and Logan Paul, Prime, had total sales of $250 million in 2022. There were even viral videos showing shortages of the product in stores such as Walmart and people fighting to buy the last units on the shelves. The most unusual volcano on the planet is Ol Doinyo Lengai in northwestern Tanzania, Africa. It is different from all other volcanoes because it is the only one that has produced flows with a specific carbonate composition, which makes its lava much cooler, only 1094 degrees Fahrenheit, which during the day appears black and at night is bright red, and when it comes into contact with water, it turns white. Knowing so many decimal places of pi actually has no practical use. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory uses up to 15 decimal places of pi for its interplanetary navigation space missions. More than that is not necessary. Only 39 decimal places would be needed to calculate the spherical volume of the entire universe. The country where the most instant noodles are consumed is China. It is estimated that every year in China, around 40 billion servings are purchased. Second place is Indonesia, with 12 billion per year. Writer Stephen King mentioned that his recommended formula for any writer is to read and write at least between 4 and 6 hours a day. If you do not have time for that, you cannot expect to be a great writer, according to his statements. His daily goal is 2,000 words, and he does not stop writing until he reaches it. No permit or visa is needed to live and work in Svalbard, an archipelago that is part of Norway and is located very close to the North Pole. In this place, there is the global seed vault, preserved in permanently frozen ground. The first thing they teach you when you arrive there is how to defend yourself in case of a polar bear attack. Actor Brian Blessed met the artist Picasso at a convention in 1948 when he was 12 years old. But he was not convinced that it was really Picasso. So he went to ask him, and in response, Picasso drew him a dove of peace on a piece of paper. Even so, it did not convince him, and he threw the drawing on the floor. This drawing is now in a gallery and is valued at more than 50 million pounds. The movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971 has a different name from the original book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This change was made to sell chocolate bars and other Wonka brand products. Unfortunately, because of logistics problems, almost no stores had them when the movie was released. In Japan, there are more than twice as many 7-Eleven stores as in the United States, the country where the chain originated. 21,000 in Japan and 9,300 in the United States. In Tokyo alone, there are more than 2,000 branches, and they offer a wider variety of products compared with branches in other countries. The coldest permanently inhabited city in the world is Oymyakon in Russia, east of Siberia. In the months of January and February, its average temperature is minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit, and the highest average temperature is in the month of July, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Beethoven's piano sonatas are known for being deeply emotional, which caused them to be misunderstood in their time because that style was not fashionable. There is only one sonata he made, number 25, Opus 79 in G major, that has a more cheerful and rhythmic style. It was an experiment he carried out so people could see what he was capable of. Even today, it remains one of the most well-known pieces in that category. Gonzalo Guerrero was a Spanish castaway who arrived on the Yucatan Peninsula in 1511. He was taken prisoner by the Maya, but eventually gained their trust and freedom. He married the daughter of Nachan Kaan, lord of Chactemal, adopted Maya culture, and fought against the Spanish conquerors. Guerrero is considered the first European to fully integrate into Maya culture. The color of ladybugs is not meant to attract attention. On the contrary, the red and black color in nature signals to predators that the animal is poisonous and not worth pursuing. In addition to that, they also have a defense mechanism that releases a foul-smelling liquid that comes out of their knees. There are 3 countries in the world that do not have a single forest: Qatar, Oman, and San Marino. In contrast, the countries with the largest forest territories are Russia, Brazil, and Canada. Cats are 95% tiger. These 2 animals share a common ancestor that lived 10 million years ago, which is why they share most of their genetic code. This can also be seen in behaviors of domestic cats that tigers also have, such as marking their territory and stalking their prey with a leap. Hummingbirds can reach speeds equivalent to traveling in 1 second, a distance 400 times their own body length. In that sense, the speed they achieve relative to their body size is greater than that of a jet airplane. People who eat slowly are 42% less likely to be overweight or obese. Even those who eat at a normal speed have 29% less risk of being overweight. This, according to a study from Kyushu University in Japan. This happens because the brain takes about 20 minutes to register that we have eaten enough. There is an island called Inaccessible Island in the Tristan da Cunha archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean, where the smallest flightless bird species in the world lives, the Tristan da Cunha rail, which measures 6.7 inches and has managed to thrive because there are no predators there, unlike what has happened with other flightless birds on other islands, such as the dodo, which became extinct. Night vision devices use the color green because humans can recognize more shades or tones of different brightness in green compared with any other color. Scientists managed to accelerate the evolution of some snails by exposing them to the metal platinum. They developed without shells, just like slugs that originate from snails. Olympic lifeguards who are present at all swimming events earn around $340 for the 20 days their service is required. In general, they do not have to do anything, since Olympic swimmers are usually very skilled, but the rules say that lifeguards must be watching at all times. The Metallica song Master of Puppets became the first metal song to be added to the recording registry of the United States Library of Congress after being considered culturally significant. The reason why the roofs of traditional Asian buildings curve at the corners is so they allow more sunlight to enter through the windows during winter and provide more shade during summer. In the 11th century in Italy, the upper classes began using forks, but shortly afterward, the church declared that they were instruments of the devil and banned them. It was not until 300 or 400 years later that their use became normal. That means that before that, people ate spaghetti with their hands. In the Philippines, there is a small island called Vulcan Point that is located in the crater lake of the Taal volcano, which in turn is an island in a lake. And that lake is located inside the Philippines, which itself is also made up of islands. So it is an island in a lake, inside an island in a lake, inside an island. In tennis, if your hat or cap falls off during a play, or something happens that accidentally interferes with the game, the judge can order that the last points played be repeated. This may seem like an old rule, but for example, a Wimbledon match in 2008 was decided with a play that had to be repeated because a player's visor fell off. In 2013, Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook and later Meta, bought the 4 neighboring houses surrounding his property for a total of $30 million. He did it to guarantee his security and privacy. There was a building in the city of Tokyo that consisted of modular capsule rooms that could be replaced and renewed periodically, resembling the cells of a living organism. It became a famous construction, but it was demolished in April 2022 due to lack of maintenance. The island of Java in Indonesia has a population larger than that of Russia, even though it has less than 1% of the size of Russia's territory. The Greek mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras had an irrational fear of beans, since he said they resembled the gates of Hades, the world of the dead. He also managed to convince the people around him of this. Soap operas are traditionally called soap operas in English. This is because the earliest ones, which were broadcast on the radio, were directed at housewives, and soap companies, considering them their main market, advertised their cleaning products during the commercials. The sand dunes located farthest north in the world are in the region of Saskatchewan in Canada. They can reach up to 98 feet. In Finland, there are also sand dunes, but they are near a beach and are smaller than those in Canada. The French tried to change the system of time in 1793. They began using what they called French Revolutionary Time, which, instead of 24 hours, had only 10 hours in the day. Each hour had 100 minutes, and each minute 100 seconds, similar to the decimal metric system. However, it stopped being used only 17 months later because it caused a lot of confusion among people. In 2004, in the Republic of Georgia, which is located at the boundary of Europe and Asia, 30,000 police officers were fired, including almost all traffic police, because of corruption. After this, they built glass police stations to encourage an image of transparency. From that point on, the perception of corruption and trust in the police increased considerably in that country. Building sandcastles is illegal on some beaches in the world, such as in Tenerife, Spain, and on the beach of Eraclea near Venice, Italy. There are 3 countries that are completely surrounded by another country. Lesotho is surrounded by the territory of South Africa. San Marino is surrounded by Italy, and the Vatican is also inside Italy. All other countries either have access to the sea or border 2 or more different countries. During the Second World War, the United States Federal Reserve printed special banknotes for Hawaii so they could be declared invalid in case the Japanese invaded the island. The main difference is that they have the word Hawaii written in large letters on the back. Most were destroyed afterward, but the remaining ones are highly valued by collectors. The golden circle on the coat of arms of the flag of Portugal represents an armillary sphere, an instrument that was used as a model of the cosmos to determine the location of celestial bodies, used by navigators during the age of maritime discoveries. The scene where Peter Parker catches the food that was about to fall in Spider-Man 1 was done without using digital effects, but they had to repeat the shot 156 times before it worked. Meanwhile, members of the YouTube channel Corridor Digital recreated the scene the same way and succeeded in only 33 takes. According to projections from the United Nations, India has already surpassed China as the country with the largest population on the planet, with a little more than 1,425,000,000 people. But according to official statistics, China is still the most populated. Around 4,000 years ago, there were species of crocodiles called Makosukine that are believed to have been completely terrestrial and whose diet consisted mainly of mollusks. In most movies where there are battles in space, when a ship explodes, there is a fireball as if it happened on Earth. But in reality, space is a vacuum, so there is no oxygen to serve as fuel for the explosion. In real life, this explosion would only be seen as a very brief flash. In 2010, the police in Belfast, Northern Ireland, decided to use the sound played by ice cream trucks to calm a riot that was taking place. And it worked. Uzbekistan and Liechtenstein are the only landlocked countries that are surrounded by other countries that are also landlocked. Therefore, to reach the sea by land, if you leave either of these two countries, you have to cross two other countries. The singer of the band Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, has mentioned that during concerts, he needs an engineer to send sounds to his headphones from time to time so that he does not get distracted and can focus his mind, since he has attention deficit disorder. Something his daughter, Liv Tyler, has also mentioned she has, which is why she has had to take medication since her teenage years. At the summit of Mount Everest, there are marine sedimentary rocks that, according to geologists, 450 million years ago were at the bottom of the sea. But over time and through the movement of tectonic plates, they rose until reaching one of the highest points in the world. The designers of the game Zelda, A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS, designed everything tilted, including the maps and the characters. This was done so it could be viewed well in the classic top-down camera perspective. In 2009, the singer Lily Allen was offered 200,000 Bitcoin as payment in exchange for a concert on the online platform Second Life. But the offer was rejected and she did not perform. If she had accepted, she would currently be a multi-millionaire. The guitarist of the heavy metal band Anthrax, Dan Spitz, retired from playing because he began to see it as a monotonous job. So he decided to pursue his dream instead, which is what he does now, making and repairing watches. The city of Damascus in Syria is the oldest city in the world that has been continuously inhabited. It is believed that people settled there at least 11,000 years ago. It has more than 125 historical monuments from the different periods of the place, such as the Umayyad Mosque, built in the 8th century. In the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, during the scenes where the enemies or the X's are eliminated, real Canadian coins were used, specifically the Canadian $1 and $2 coins. 10,000 years ago, lions were the most numerous mammals on Earth after humans. They lived in Africa, Europe, Asia, and America. But little by little, their numbers began to decrease. The ink of several ballpoint pens has an aroma similar to termite pheromones. So if you draw a line on paper near termites, they will follow it. The present-day capital of Slovenia, the city of Ljubljana, has belonged to 10 different countries or territories in the last 200 years, including the Illyrian provinces, Austria, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, Italy, Germany during the Second World War, Yugoslavia as a country, and finally, Slovenia. A star explodes in a supernova every 100 years on average in a galaxy. With calculations about the number of galaxies in the universe, 170 billion, it can be concluded that there are at least 53 supernovas exploding somewhere every second. During part of the 19th century, aluminum was considered more valuable than gold because it was more difficult to obtain. The government of France even displayed aluminum bars alongside the crown jewels, and Napoleon III had a set of aluminum cutlery that he only used on special occasions for distinguished guests. There is a distant star that is so bright that it would illuminate in a way similar to the sun from our perspective at a distance of 33 light-years from Earth. For comparison, the sun is only 8 light minutes away from us. An antipode is a point that is exactly on the opposite side of planet Earth, and, because of the location of the continents, some countries end up directly opposite another country. For example, Argentina and Chile are on the opposite side of China, or Spain and Portugal with New Zealand. The Pacific Ocean is so large that it has 2 antipodal points. Rolls-Royce offers a course called the White Glove Experience to teach chauffeurs things such as minimizing fingerprint marks on door handles and the correct process for braking without the car bouncing. Dogs have fewer taste buds than humans. We have 9,000 and dogs have 1,700. This makes dogs taste things less, so they are not bothered by foods with bad flavor or even spoiled food. However, their sense of smell is much more developed than ours. A study confirmed that cows can produce 3% more milk if they listen to calm and slow music every day. They also played electronic music and heavy metal for them, but the cows did not like it as much. The city of Plymouth, the capital of Montserrat, had to be completely evacuated and became a ghost town in 1997 due to the sudden eruptions of a volcano that had been inactive for centuries. After that, the government moved to a town in the north of the island, but they left Plymouth as the honorary capital. Intellectual property laws do not cover magic tricks. That is, any original trick performed by a magician cannot be registered and can be copied by any other magician without consequences. Canada does not have an exact date on which it obtained its independence from Great Britain. When the Supreme Court established a date, they decided that independence had been acquired in the period between the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 and the Statute of Westminster in 1931. Antarctica is considered the largest desert in the world because, despite containing the largest reserve of frozen water in the world, there is so little precipitation that it falls into the desert category. The original Batmobile from the first Batman series from 1966 was sold for $4.2 million. Only one was built, but afterward, countless replicas were made that are sold much more cheaply. The video game company that created the Halo franchise, Bungie, had to remove 200,000 copies of the strategy game Myth: The Fallen Lords from stores in 1998 because it had a problem that caused that when players uninstalled it from their computer, the default directory was the entire hard drive, so you could accidentally erase your whole computer. The currency of the African country of Botswana is called pula, which in the Tswana language means rain. It was named that because water is very scarce and precious in that place. This currency was introduced in 1976, replacing the South African rand. In 2021, Apple reported that it earned $14 billion in revenue from mobile games offered in the App Store, from which it receives a percentage of each transaction. That year, it earned more revenue than Nintendo and Microsoft, despite not being a company dedicated to video games. There is a very large area in the center of South America where the magnetic field of planet Earth is weaker. This is known as the South Atlantic anomaly. Space agencies have to make speed adjustments to satellites that pass through that area. Approximately 5 million years ago, the Mediterranean Sea dried up when a natural dam formed in the area that is now the Strait of Gibraltar, in an event known as the Messinian Salinity Crisis, exposing the ocean floor. But some centuries later, the sea returned with one of the most extreme floods that has occurred on the planet. Basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar agreed to appear in the movie Airplane on the condition that his salary be increased to $35,000 because he had seen a Persian carpet that he liked that had that price. In this movie, Jonathan Banks also appears, known for the role of Mike in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. On average, more snow falls in Hawaii than in New York during the winter. This is because on the island of Hawaii, there are the volcanoes Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, which have very high elevations, so snow accumulates on their highest parts. If you owe nothing and your total wealth is zero, you have more money than 25% of all people in the world. There are 2 billion people who have negative wealth, meaning their debts exceed their assets and capital. Many statistics that are presented do not take this fact into account. The Congo River is the deepest river in the world, reaching up to 656 feet deep. It is considered a megadiversity zone, so much so that there are many endemic species living there that have evolved differently than in other shallower rivers. It is true that if you run during the rain, you can get less wet, but not because you avoid the raindrops, but because you reach shelter faster. This is not recommended because water also reduces friction on the ground, making it more likely to fall, and it is better to get wet than to fall to the ground. During the filming of the movie Ben-Hur from 1959, blue dye had to be used in the water of the giant pool where the ship scenes were filmed to achieve the optimal color. During one of these scenes, an extra fell into the water and ended up completely dyed blue, so the studio MGM had to keep paying him his full salary until the color disappeared days later. According to a study, new banknotes create a subconscious desire to preserve them, so people who have them tend to spend less or think more carefully before making purchases. The territory of Croatia has such an unusual shape that its geographic center lies outside of Croatia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. During the marketing campaign for the first Tomb Raider games, 2 music albums of Lara Croft were released with lyrics in English, but they were only sold in France. The vocalist was the actress Rona Mitra, who at that time portrayed the character. Today, they are considered collector's items. When squirrels feel that they are being watched, they often pretend to bury the food they have, but in reality, they hide it in their mouths. They can also remember all the places where they have buried acorns with great precision and eat first the ones that have been there for a long time and are about to spoil. Slices of yellow cheese are not actually slices. When they are manufactured, they are placed in plastic at a temperature that makes it flexible like a bag, and the machine shapes them and separates them. In most countries, they also cannot legally be called cheese. Thousands of years ago, the first humans who arrived in what are now the islands of Sumatra, Java, Borneo, and Bali arrived on foot from southern Asia, since the sea level was lower at that time and land bridges formed. Meanwhile, the humans who populated the area of eastern Indonesia, unlike those of the other islands, had arrived there on rafts from Asia many years earlier and settled that region before later also going to New Guinea and Australia. Chevrolet offered an option for buyers of the Corvette Z06 that was called Build Your Own Engine. For $5,000 extra, you could go to the factory and assist a technician while assembling your car's engine, and then they would place a plate with your name on it. But they no longer do it because it slowed down production too much. Professional bowling involves oil patterns that are invisible to the naked eye placed before each game, which contribute to the speed and effect of each throw. This adds levels of difficulty. A bank robber once covered his face with lemon juice because he believed this would interfere with security cameras, making him invisible. Of course, he was arrested. This event led to a psychological study from Cornell University that explained how people with fewer skills tend to see themselves as having more abilities than they actually have. The village of Masinram in the Khasi Hills in the state of Meghalaya in India is recognized as the place where it rains the most in the entire world. On June 17, 2022, it broke the record for the most rainfall in a single day with 51 inches in 24 hours. In 1799, the French discovered the Rosetta Stone, a rock that had text carved in 3 different languages: Ancient Greek, Demotic script, and Egyptian hieroglyphs. It was part of the construction of an Ottoman fort in the town of Rashid in Egypt. This stele, or monolith, turned out to be key to deciphering ancient Egyptian writing for the first time. According to its creator, Louis Réard, for a swimsuit garment to be considered a bikini, it had to be able to pass through a wedding ring, referring to how small it had to be. This was considered a revolution because in the year it was invented, 1946, swimsuits covered a much larger area of the body. In 2012, Taylor Swift held a public vote on the internet to decide where she would go to perform, in which schools could participate. When users of the forum 4chan saw this, they coordinated to manipulate the vote, and the winner was the Boston School for the Deaf. In the end, the singer did not perform there, but she sent them a check for $10,000. The full name of the city of Bangkok, the capital of Thailand, has 168 letters and is recognized as the longest place name in the world. It is written in the Pali and Sanskrit languages. Many Thai people know it by heart because a rock band called Asani Wasan made a song in 1989 where the lyrics are this name repeated several times. Bananas in the stage of ripening, or when they are ready to eat, have a blue glow under ultraviolet light. This occurs when the chlorophyll they contain begins to break down, causing this reaction. It is the only fruit or plant in general that has this characteristic. The cosmetics company L'Oreal has a special laboratory to grow human skin to be used in tests for its products. They have also incorporated 3-dimensional printing technology into their skin cultivation process. There is a clown museum in the United Kingdom where they have 250 eggs painted with the faces of different clowns. This serves as a way to protect the intellectual property of their makeup. The largest country that does not have an airport is Andorra. It only has 3 private heliports, and to travel by plane, people go to the nearest airports located in France or Spain. The other countries that do not have airports are Liechtenstein, Monaco, San Marino, and Vatican City. The scene where Ralph, the character from The Simpsons, says, "I'm in danger," which has become popular in memes, actually does not come from an episode of The Simpsons. It comes from a Family Guy episode from 2014 where they do a crossover with The Simpsons. To demonstrate that the key to losing weight is not necessarily eating healthier, but consuming fewer calories, a nutrition professor consumed 1,800 calories of junk food daily, including Twinkies and Oreos. This lasted 10 weeks. By the way, he also took multivitamins and protein shakes. In the end, he had lost 26.5 pounds and had also lowered his bad cholesterol level, but he did not recommend following that diet. It was only to demonstrate that it could be done. Phyllis Smith, who played the character Phyllis in the series The Office, did not audition for her role. She was actually working in the casting office selecting actors, but after observing her, the director offered her a role on the show. The largest national park in the entire European Union is located in South America. It is the Guiana Amazonian Park in French Guiana, and it covers 13,090 square miles. In this same region is the longest border of France, which borders Brazil. This is because French Guiana counts as French territory. Some dogs seem to have eyebrows, and thanks to this, they are more expressive. This is due to an evolutionary trait that has been favored by humans through selective breeding, resulting in better communication. In short, we gave dogs eyebrows. During the filming of the movie Star Trek from 2009, actor Zachary Quinto could not perform the characteristic Vulcan salute of the character he was portraying, Spock. So at one point, director J.J. Abrams had to glue his fingers together so he could do it correctly. Writer Charles Dickens grew up during the period called the Little Ice Age, when the temperature around the world was colder than normal, which is why it snowed during the first Christmas seasons he experienced. This influenced the style of his works, such as A Christmas Carol, considered classics to this day. The territory of Japan extends farther east, farther west, farther north, and farther south than the entire Korean peninsula. This is because there are many Japanese islands to the south, including the westernmost island, Yonaguni, which are quite far from the main island of Japan. Actor Jackie Chan began his career as a stunt double in Bruce Lee's films Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon. In one of the scenes, Bruce Lee accidentally hit him in the face for real. After that, he promised that he would invite him to make more films, but those were never made. While the helicopter attack scenes were being filmed for the movie Apocalypse Now, the helicopters that had been lent by the Philippine Air Force for filming suddenly flew away abruptly and disappeared. They had been called to repel a rebel attack in real life. Shortly afterward, they returned to continue filming. Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts are the same species of plant, but over the years, they have been selectively cultivated to modify their taste and appearance so they no longer even look like the same type of plant. The first jeans were officially created in 1873 when the company Levi Strauss received the patent that allowed them to place rivets on denim pants, making them more durable for the workers who wore them. The television show Pimp My Ride was once fined for installing a television inside a steering wheel. The fine was $16,000, since placing something that distracts the driver is prohibited. The audio levels in recorded music have gradually increased since the 1990s in order to make it stand out more. This is done by reducing the dynamic range, which raises the volume in quieter parts but cuts frequencies in the highest peaks, resulting in a loss of sound quality. The North Pole has no land. There are no islands or continental mass there. Even though it has a surface that can be walked on, it is actually only frozen water. Edwin Land invented the instant camera after his 3-year-old daughter asked him why she could not see the photo that had just been taken. 1 hour after that, he already had the idea for the patent. Shortly afterward, he founded the company Polaroid. In the animated series Jackie Chan Adventures, the character of Jackie Chan's niece was played by his real-life niece, Stacy Chan. Despite this, the character of Jackie Chan was not played by Jackie Chan. The country with the lowest percentage of population with obesity is Vietnam, with 2.1%, while first place is Nauru with 61%. Even though they are culturally associated, coconuts are not native to Hawaii. It is believed that they arrived floating in the ocean and grew on the islands, migrating on their own. Something similar happened with pineapples, which also did not originally grow there. To publicize the defeat of a very important adversary, the ancient Romans built statues in honor of Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who crossed the Alps and nearly conquered Rome. Archaeologists found fossilized bread from 14,000 years ago at a site in Jordan where a settlement of gatherers and hunters was established. This means that bread existed before agriculture and may have been one of the main motivations for people to begin cultivating crops. During long flights, airplane pilots also fall asleep. They have special compartments in larger airplanes that open up and contain beds. These are also used by the aircraft crew. Professional sumo wrestlers in Japan are forbidden from driving cars or motorcycles because, due to their size, they do not fit in some small cars, and they could also suffer more damage than an average person if they get into an accident. The away uniforms of Major League Baseball teams are gray because 100 years ago, visiting teams did not have access to laundries during their trips. So, making them gray made stains and dirt on the uniforms less noticeable. After that, it remained as a tradition. Artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, also known as Samo, an exponent of neo-expressionism, appeared in Blondie's music video Rapture before he became famous. Singer Debbie Harry bought his first work for $200. To this day, his works have reached values of more than $100 million. In 2014, the sports brand Reebok tried to sell bacon as part of an advertising campaign aimed at CrossFit enthusiasts due to the popularity of the paleo diet, which is high in animal protein, vegetables, and seeds. But shortly afterward, they stopped doing it and never mentioned it again. The Koh-i-Noor diamond, which at one time became the largest in the world, was located inside the Taj Mahal in India. But when Great Britain conquered India, the East India Company took it to make it part of the British crown jewels. This happened in 1877. To this day, it is displayed in the Museum of the Tower of London. During the funeral of United States President Andrew Jackson in 1845, his pet parrot began saying swear words when it became excited because many people had gathered. Jackson had taught him those words in previous years. They had to take him to another room because he would not stop. The largest graffiti ever made consists of a single line that the artist Momo created in Manhattan, almost 8 miles long, spelling his name. In Japan, there are 3 museums dedicated to instant noodles, including the Cup Noodles Museum, the brand that sells the most instant noodles in the world. A man named Chris Clark bought the internet domain pizza.com in 1994 for $20, and every year he spent another $20 to renew it, until in 2008 he decided to put it up for sale in an auction. In the end, he sold it for $2,600,000. The curved tip that ice cream cones from the Dairy Queen restaurant chain have is patented, and, according to employees, there is a very specific way to make it so it looks the same every time. During the 1970s, there were 6 different Flintstones-themed amusement parks in the United States. One of these was put up for sale in 2015 for $2 million. Penitentes are a formation of snow that only occurs in high-altitude areas of the dry Andes in Chile and Argentina, and they occur thanks to conditions such as the dew point being below the freezing point and the speed of the wind. It is believed that they also form on Pluto and on Jupiter's moon Europa. In 2007, 90% of the internet connection of the entire country of Vietnam went down because fishermen cut one of the main submarine cables to sell the materials. The vegetable that is cultivated in the largest number of different countries in the world is the onion, with at least 175 countries producing it. Wheat is the crop that covers the most territory in the world, but it is cultivated in fewer countries. An analyst found a correlation between the most important moments in the career of actress Anne Hathaway and the percentage increase in the stock price of Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway. Every time the actress trends, the stock goes up. The Amazon River is the longest river in the world, measuring a little more than 4,350 miles. Despite that, there is not a single permanent bridge that crosses it. Macadamia nuts are very dangerous for dogs because they contain a toxin that affects their nervous system and makes them weak and unable to walk properly, symptoms that can even last for days. In Finland, the World Championship of Mobile Phone Throwing is held every year. This event was created in the year 2000 by a Nokia employee to raise awareness about the increase of toxic waste from discarded phones. The country where people participate the most in gambling is Australia. 80% of adults in that country regularly take part in some form of betting, whether sports betting or casino games, either physical or electronic. The first baby carriage was designed in 1733 by a landscape architect named William Kent. It was almost the same as the ones used today, with the main difference being that it was made with an adapter so it could be pulled by a goat or by a similar-sized animal, so that high society people who could afford it would not get tired. There is a race called the Man versus Horse Marathon that has been held in Wales since 1980. It has a distance of 21.7 miles, and, as its name suggests, people on horseback and people running compete at the same time. In 2004, 2007, and 2022, a runner won, while in the other years, a horse has won. There is a city in New Zealand called Rotorua that has a constant smell of rotten eggs in the air. This is due to the sulfur that comes from swamp areas in the region, but there are still residents and tourists because of the hot springs found there. A person's hair could support the weight of up to 2 elephants, approximately 26,400 pounds. This is thanks to the flexibility and combined strength of the more than 100,000 hairs that are on the average human head. Skunks that have had their scent glands removed can be excellent pets, similar to ferrets. They are very docile and can even learn tricks and respond when called by their name. The literal translation in Mandarin Chinese of the Great Wall of China is the Long City. Starbucks spends more money on health insurance for its employees than on coffee beans. At a concert by the band The Who in 1969, a man climbed onto the stage to try to take the microphone and speak, but he was struck by the singer and the guitarist. The man was actually a police officer who was trying to warn everyone that there was a fire in the building next door. The guitarist was arrested. Meat that is vacuum sealed has a slightly purple coloration, but since people would find it strange and would not buy it in the supermarket, it is treated with carbon monoxide and other compounds so it keeps a red color. The 5 villages on the island of Kiritimati and Kiribati have interesting names: Tabuairan, London, Poland, Paris, and Banana. 17,000 divorce cases in Egypt cited the mobile game Candy Crush as one of the causes. This according to a report from 2018. Part of that statistic also mentions that the PlayStation is the video game console that caused the most divorces in that country, with 250,000. If a domestic pig is released into the wild, within a few months it will grow tusks, more hair, and become more aggressive, returning to its natural state. It is estimated that more than half of all academic research or university theses that are written are never read by the general population, only by the authors, the evaluators, and the editors of the publications. The pygmy titi is the smallest primate in the world. It measures less than 7.9 inches and weighs 3.5 ounces. They live in the tropical lowlands of the forests of the western Amazon. Pistachios tends to ignite spontaneously when there are many of them together. The absence of liquid combined with their natural oil, heat, and even the friction of their shells create perfect conditions to start flames. The 3 northern territories of Canada, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, have an area similar to that of the entire country of India. However, only 100,000 people live in that region. Most of Canada's population is concentrated in the south of the country. The country of Kiribati, which is pronounced Kiribati in the Micronesian Gilbertese language, is an archipelago and is the only country in the world whose main territory is located in all 4 hemispheres. An abandoned Walmart store in McAllen, Texas, was converted into a public library. It became the largest single-story library in the United States. When traveling to Iceland, one of the recommendations for tourists states that the country's drinking water may have a smell similar to rotten eggs or sulfur. However, it can be safely consumed and does not have a bad taste. This occurs because of a treatment they use so temperature variations do not cause the pipes to break. According to a study, children reported that products with cartoon characters on the wrappers and boxes tasted better compared with those that did not have them, even though the product was exactly the same in both cases. The theory of tectonic plates was presented and accepted only in the 1960s, despite all the observations that had been made in the 2 centuries before that date. The only times Elvis Presley performed outside the United States were in 3 Canadian cities near the border. According to statements from people close to him, he was afraid of flying. The favorite drink of the former leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, was Hennessy Cognac. He liked it so much that he reportedly spent up to $1 million in a single year just on bottles of that drink. The summit of Mount Everest is considered the highest point in the world at 29,032 feet above sea level. However, the point farthest from the center of the Earth, and therefore the closest to space, would be the summit of the Chimborazo volcano in Ecuador, since the planet has a geoid shape and the part near the equator has greater height. If the planet Earth is compared to an apple, the Earth's crust would be equivalent only to the peel of the apple. On Earth, the crust is only 1% of the total volume and has a depth of 25 miles. Not a single engineer survived on the Titanic. They stayed operating the electrical lights so that people could escape more easily. In the entertainment world, people who wrote during the medieval period are often represented using literal bird feathers to write letters on paper. And while real feathers were indeed used, they were actually trimmed so they would not get in the way and were much simpler. The point that is farthest north in the territory of Brazil is closer to Canada than it is to the southernmost point of Brazil. There is a website called Brickset that gathers a database of all the Lego pieces and sets that have been made up to the present day. This is so people can get a replacement in case they lose one or for any type of reference. More than 100 years ago, in the 19th century, before the invention of mercury amalgams, people's teeth sometimes exploded suddenly. This happened because different metals were used, which could create an electrochemical cell in the mouth, basically turning it into a low-voltage battery. Finland is the country with the most heavy metal bands per person in the world. While Sweden and Norway have 27 bands per 100,000 inhabitants, Finland has double that, 54 per 100,000. On old maps, they often drew sea monsters and strange creatures. They did this to indicate unexplored territories. It was like a way of saying that if you go there, it is at your own risk. There is an island near Venice, Italy, called Poveglia, that is considered haunted, and for that reason, it is known as the Island of Ghosts. It is currently uninhabited, but in the past it was used as a fort, a quarantine station, a hospital, and a mental asylum. A test was conducted to understand how small children learn language, where it was discovered that speaking directly to them produced a much better result than having them listen to people speaking on television. A law in India requires doctors to write medical prescriptions with the names of medicines in capital letters and as clearly as possible to avoid mistakes that could lead to health problems due to misreading handwriting. The cult film Napoleon Dynamite was made with a budget of $400,000. After it was shown at the Sundance Festival, Fox bought it for almost $5 million. When it was released in theaters, it earned $46 million. And finally, when it was released on DVD, sales totaled $130 million. So it can be considered a success. In India, there are bridges more than 500 years old that are made with living trunks and roots, which allows them to withstand very strong floods. And even over time, they become stronger since they continue growing.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.